The Draconian Empire, once poised to dominate the galaxy, faced a catastrophic defeat in the Lyran constellation. The intervention of the ancient feline beings thwarted their efforts. The adrenaline produced in human blood during moments of intense fear gave the Draconians a euphoric high. The invasion of Orion was far from easy for the Draconians. Though they expected a swift conquest, they met significant resistance. After years of bloody warfare, the Draconians eventually subdued the Orion resistance. It housed the Pleiadian star cluster, a system populated by spiritually advanced humanoids directly descended from the Lyrans. The initial encounter, however, was doomed from the start. They activated protective energy fields, fearing an attack was imminent. This perceived insult infuriated the Draconians, whose cultural pride was deeply wounded. Angered by what they perceived as a deliberate insult, the Draconians launched an immediate and brutal attack on the Pleiadian star cluster. As the Draconians ravaged the Pleiadian worlds, millions of lives were lost, and entire planets were laid to waste. The war escalated, drawing more star systems into the conflict. The renewed Draconian offensive targeted not only Lyra, but also nearby star systems that harbored humanoid populations. As the war spread, the galaxy polarized. Different species began to align themselves with either the Draco-Orion Empire or the Lyran-Pleiadian alliance. As the war reached its peak, the Draco-Orion Empire faced increasing resistance from the growing Galactic Alliance. Among them were the Mantis species, originating from a parallel universe. With the Mantis species now fully integrated into the Draco-Orion Empire, the scale of the Draconian military had expanded dramatically. A neutral Draconian scientist, working in the shadows of the Zeta Reticuli star system, engineered the Zeta Greys using DNA from the original Orion Grey species. By placing the Greys on the front lines, the Draconians ensured that their own forces would be kept relatively safe during dangerous engagements. As the war intensified, the Zeta Greys became a crucial component of the Draco-Orion Empire's war machine. As the war between the Draco-Orion Empire and the Galactic Alliance raged on, a new and unexpected force entered the conflict: the Cynocephali, a species of fierce, wolf-like beings from the Sirius C star system. The Cynocephali suddenly launched devastating attacks on both the Draco-Orion Empire and the Galactic Alliance, catching both sides off guard. Entire fleets were destroyed in their surprise attacks, and their ability to defeat multiple Draconian legions struck fear into the Draco-Orion Empire. The Galactic Alliance, too, suffered massive losses at the hands of the Cynocephali. Both sides knew that once the Cynocephali threat was contained, the war would inevitably resume, using hit-and-run tactics that decimated defenses before retreating into the shadows. Their brutality left psychological scars, fracturing morale and instilling terror into both the Galactic Alliance and Draco-Orion forces. Ultimately sided with the Draconians, drawn by the promise of unrestrained warfare. Before the Cynocephali joined the Draco-Orion Empire, the Andromedans had issued warnings to both the Galactic Alliance and the Draconian leadership about the dangers posed by this unpredictable species. Through their advanced spiritual technologies, the Andromedans had observed the Cynocephali's growing hunger for conquest, and they feared the chaos that would follow if this warrior species became more deeply involved in the war. In several diplomatic attempts, the Andromedans offered to mediate between the Galactic Alliance and the Cynocephali, hoping to steer the wolf-like beings away from the conflict. However, the war-hungry Cynocephali rejected these overtures, and the Andromedans, bound by their commitment to non-interference, could do little more than watch as the chaos unfolded. Their influence remained in the background, helping the Alliance manage the war's spiritual consequences while avoiding direct military engagement. But even the Andromedans could see that their time to remain neutral was running out. The Cynocephali had proven their strength by defeating multiple Draconian legions and causing immense casualties on both sides. This unprecedented show of force quickly gained the attention of both the Draco-Orion Empire and the Galactic Alliance, who recognized the potential of turning the Cynocephali to their side. For a time, the Cynocephali attacked both factions indiscriminately, driven by a primal instinct for dominance and a love of war, positioning themselves as mercenaries with no fixed loyalties. The Draco-Orion Empire saw an opportunity to harness the Cynocephali's chaotic power for their own ends, offering them unrestricted access to galactic warfare and conquest. In exchange for their loyalty, the Draconians promised the Cynocephali the spoils of war and entire planetary systems to rule. The Cynocephali, valuing conquest and bloodshed above all else, found this proposal appealing, as it aligned with their warrior ethos and desire for endless battle. Meanwhile, the Galactic Alliance, understanding the danger the cynocephaly posed, made its own attempts to sway them. They offered the cynocephaly a chance to fight for a more noble cause, appealing to their warrior pride and promising mutual respect and autonomy. However, the Alliance's more strategic and honorable approach did not resonate with the cynocephaly's love for chaos, and they ultimately sided with the Draconians, drawn by the promise of unrestrained warfare. This decision marked a significant shift in the balance of power, as the cynocephaly's brutal tactics and unmatched ferocity became a key asset for the Draco-Orion Empire. Their role as mercenary warriors brought new intensity to the war, as they spearheaded the Draconian offensive, leading attacks against the Galactic Alliance with devastating effectiveness. The cynocephaly's involvement in the war intensified the conflict, pushing the Alliance to its limits as entire fleets were decimated by their relentless onslaught. With the cynocephaly now aligned with the Draconian forces, the Galactic Alliance had to face not only the technologically advanced and brutal Draconians, but also a third unpredictable force. This marked the height of the war's escalation, where the strategies of both sides shifted to account for the unexpected wildcard that was the cynocephaly. As the war escalated, the galaxy became a battlefield of unprecedented proportions. Both the Draco-Orion Empire and the Galactic Alliance expanded their campaigns, and by this point, the conflict had consumed vast swaths of the galaxy. The Draco-Orion Empire controlled 236 stars across 26 constellations, with a staggering military force of 438 billion beings. The Galactic Alliance, while holding fewer systems, had nearly 400 billion beings across 30 constellations, spread among the Pleiadians, Lyran survivors, Arcturians, and other allied species. Entire star systems were either under siege or preparing for the next wave of attacks. The war was defined by several critical battles, each of which left entire systems in ruins. The Battle of Nebulae, Enrihuad 237. This battle took place in a nebula rich with energy resources, crucial to both sides. The Draco-Orion Empire, spearheaded by cynocephaly shock troops, sought to secure the nebula, but the Galactic Alliance launched a counter-offensive led by the Arcturians. The battle was a chaotic conflict fought in zero visibility, with both sides suffering immense losses as ships navigated dangerous energy fields. The Siege of Lyra. Following their retreat from Orion, the Lyrans had regrouped and fortified their worlds. The Draconians, seeking revenge for their earlier defeat in Lyra, launched a brutal assault. However, the Lyrans, now aligned with the Pleiadians and Felines, defended fiercely. This battle saw some of the heaviest ground combat of the war, with the Draconians and their Grey forces acting as cannon fodder, allowing the cynocephaly to target key strongholds. The Orion retaliation. After losing several systems, the Galactic Alliance launched a major campaign to retake parts of Orion. The battle was led by the Lyran-descended humans, who had learned from their previous defeat and had militarized their fleets with the help of the Felines. While initially successful, the Alliance was soon overwhelmed by the Draco-Orion Empire's superior numbers, forcing a retreat after heavy losses. The battle for the Pleiades, the Pleiadian star cluster, known for its spiritual and technological advancements, became a key target for the Draconian Empire. The cynocephaly once again led the charge, but the Pleiadians, using their advanced energy-based technology, managed to hold them off. The Galactic Alliance rallied its forces to defend the Pleiades, and the battle became a prolonged stalemate, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. The destruction caused by the war was unparalleled. As fleets clashed in deep space, in planetary systems, entire worlds were obliterated. It is estimated that between 25,000 and 50,000 planets were destroyed or rendered uninhabitable due to the war. Both sides used increasingly powerful weapons, and civilian populations across the galaxy were caught in the crossfire. The use of biological weapons, energy disruptors, and planetary bombardments became commonplace, leaving entire ecosystems destroyed. Planets like Zeta Reticuli and Bellatrix, once vibrant worlds, were reduced to lifeless husks after repeated battles. As the Draco-Orion Empire began to feel pressure from the increasingly resilient Galactic Alliance, they turned to a new and terrifying weapon: Atomic bombs. These weapons were developed in secret by Draconian scientists with the help of the Mantis species, who specialize in advanced biotechnology and destructive military innovations. The first atomic bombs were deployed against key alliance worlds, resulting in instant and total devastation. Entire planets were vaporized, and the atomic radiation left whole star systems uninhabitable for millennia. The destruction of Sirius A. One of the first uses of an atomic weapon was the destruction of Sirius A, a critical supply hub for the Galactic Alliance. The Draconian Empire dropped an atomic bomb that wiped out not just the planet, but also destabilized the entire system, creating a massive chain reaction that obliterated nearby colonies. The bombing of Alnitak. Another major deployment occurred in the Orion Belt, where the Draconians targeted Alnitak, a key Alliance-held system. The destruction was swift, with the entire planet being reduced to ash in seconds, effectively cutting off Alliance supply lines in the region. The introduction of these weapons marked a turning point in the war, as the Draco-Orion Empire sought to cripple the Galactic Alliance through sheer terror and force. However, the use of atomic bombs had far-reaching consequences, not only for the galaxy, but for the wider universe. With the introduction of atomic weapons, the war entered a final, devastating phase. Both sides had suffered heavy losses, and the Draco-Orion Empire appeared poised to crush the Galactic Alliance once and for all. But the use of these weapons attracted the attention of civilizations from beyond the galaxy. The Draco-Orion Empire's use of atomic bombs not only devastated entire systems within the galaxy, but began to have far-reaching effects that extended beyond our galactic borders. The atomic explosions and the ensuing radiation did not merely affect planetary systems. They began to tear at the fabric of reality itself, destabilizing the boundaries between galaxies, universes, and even dimensions. The immense power unleashed by these weapons caused disturbances in the space-time continuum, creating ripples that were felt in neighboring galaxies and dimensions. The use of such destructive weapons not only threatened the Galactic Alliance, but also put the entire cosmic balance at risk. The atomic warfare initiated by the Draco-Orion Empire set off alarms in nearby galaxies, especially those with advanced civilizations that had long evolved beyond conflict of this scale. The Great Galactic War quickly transformed into an intergalactic crisis, drawing the attention of powerful and ancient beings from neighboring galaxies, universes, and higher dimensions. For the first time in recorded history, the war escalated into what could theoretically be termed an intergalactic war. As forces from beyond our galaxy were forced to intervene, the scale of destruction, combined with the threat to dimensional stability, required action from cosmic entities that had remained neutral until this point. The combined military forces of the Draco-Orion Empire and the Galactic Alliance now totaled over 24 trillion beings, all engaged in fierce intergalactic conflict across star systems, nebulae, and planetary fortresses. However, these were just the military numbers. The populations affected by the war were even greater. Billions of civilians were caught in the crossfire, while untold, countless others across multiple star systems suffered from the devastation. Entire worlds were either destroyed or plunged into chaos as collateral damage. The war's ripple effects spread far beyond the battlefield, touching nearly every corner of the galaxy. Among the most prominent civilizations to intervene were the Andromedans, beings from the neighboring Andromeda galaxy, known for their ancient military and angelic schools. The Andromedans had a rich history of their own galactic evolution, having experienced and overcome conflicts millions of years ago. Many of the surviving Lyrans, after the Lyran devastation, had traveled to Andromeda to train in the art of warfare and angelic healing, integrating their knowledge into the galaxy's defense efforts. The Andromedans, recognizing the threat that the Draco-Orion Empire's atomic weapons posed to the greater cosmic structure, mobilized their forces. Their intervention was not only militaristic, but also spiritual. They deployed warriors trained in advanced warfare, alongside angelic healers, capable of repairing the energetic damage caused by the atomic fallout. The Andromedans had an unparalleled mastery over energy-based spiritual technologies, a synthesis of military strength and cosmic wisdom, which they used to bring a transformative power to the battlefield. These technologies were designed not only to heal, but also to stabilize cosmic grids and astral ley lines that had been ruptured by the devastation. Andromedan ships carried healing frequencies and energy shields, capable of repairing both physical and metaphysical damage. Their fleets did not merely defend star systems, they realigned the disrupted energy flows of entire regions, ensuring that the chaos unleashed by the war did not spiral into irreversible damage. The Andromedan spiritual technology became a key factor in restoring balance to the galactic environment, making their intervention essential to both military and spiritual recovery. The Andromedans were not the only force to intervene. Other beings from neighboring galaxies, parallel universes, and even higher dimensions joined the effort to contain the chaos. These powerful civilizations had largely remained neutral until the fabric of the multiverse itself was threatened by the escalation of the Great Galactic War. Entities from parallel dimensions, where the laws of physics and reality were different, began to lend their expertise in stabilizing the ruptures caused by the atomic detonations. These beings, capable of dimensional manipulation, worked to prevent the collapse of space-time across multiple universes. Spiritual and energetic forces from higher dimensions, who typically operated beyond the physical realm, also entered the conflict. These angelic beings, aligned with cosmic harmony, used their abilities to repair the damage done to the cosmic grids and astral ley lines that connected the galaxy to other dimensions. The war, which had primarily been a physical conflict, now expanded into the astral realm, where billions of beings fought in spiritual and psychic battles. Negative dimensional forces aligned with the Draco-Orion Empire began clashing with the Galactic Alliance and their newly allied higher dimensional beings. The astral warfare took place in the spiritual and energetic planes, where control over cosmic energy grids and spiritual power became key to victory. These conflicts were just as intense as the physical battles, with entire realms of existence being torn apart by the clashes. With the intervention of the Andromedans and other powerful intergalactic forces, the balance of power in the war began to shift. The Galactic Alliance, which had been on the defensive for much of the war, now found itself receiving reinforcements from across the multiverse. The combined efforts of these advanced civilizations brought new hope to the beleaguered alliance. The Andromedans, in particular, introduced advanced technologies that outclassed even the Draconians' weapons. Their angelic healing techniques restored the vitality of several critical star systems that had been ravaged by atomic warfare. Additionally, their energy-based spiritual technologies played a pivotal role in stabilizing galactic energy grids and repairing the damaged cosmic structure, which had been severely disrupted by atomic detonations. These technologies not only shielded key systems, but also strengthened the spiritual resilience of the Galactic Alliance, allowing them to recover faster and defend both the physical and astral realms. Meanwhile, the intervention of dimensional beings helped stabilize the space-time and astral disruptions, ensuring that the galaxy would not collapse under the strain of the war. The Alliance's astral forces, bolstered by the intervention of light beings, began to turn the tide in the astral realm as well, countering the psychic and spiritual attacks launched by the Draconian-aligned negative dimensional entities. The Andromedans and their allies from neighboring galaxies, universes, and dimensions intervened with overwhelming force, introducing advanced technologies, strategic insights, and spiritual healing practices that began to turn the tide of the war. Their intervention was the decisive factor that finally halted the relentless advance of the Draco-Orion Empire. As the Galactic Alliance and their new intergalactic allies gathered strength, several major battles became turning points in the war, ultimately shifting the balance of power. The Battle of Zeta Reticuli, the Draco-Orion Empire, seeking to regain control of the vital Zeta Reticuli star system, launched a massive offensive against the Alliance. However, the Andromedan fleets, with their superior technology, arrived just in time. Using cloaking technology and dimensional manipulation, they launched surprise attacks on the Draconian fleet, crippling their forces and retaking the system for the Galactic Alliance. The Zeta Reticuli system became a critical staging point for the Alliance, and the Draconians faced their first major defeat in years. The defense of Sirius B. The Draco-Orion Empire launched a coordinated attack on the Sirius star system, targeting Sirius B an important spiritual and energy hub for the Galactic Alliance. The Andromedans, aided by Pleiadian healers and Arcturian tacticians, created an unbreakable shield around the star system. The resulting battle was fierce, with Draconian legions attempting to break the shield. However, the Andromedans' superior energy manipulation and the combined forces of the Alliance held the line, ensuring that Sirius B remained intact. The defeat left the Draconians vulnerable and forced them to retreat. The Siege of Bellatrix. This battle was a turning point in the Orion constellation. The Draco-Orion Empire, desperate to maintain its control over Orion, sent legions of cynocephaly, shock troops to crush the Galactic Alliance. However, the combined forces of Andromedans, Pleiadians, and Lyran descendants proved too much for the Draconian legions. The Andromedans used dimensional phasing tactics to strike at key Draconian strongholds, while Pleiadian healers kept the troops in fighting shape. After a long and grueling battle, the Alliance prevailed, pushing the Draconians out of the Orion constellation. The cynocephaly, once fierce and loyal allies of the Draco-Orion Empire, began to question their allegiance as the war progressed. They had been promised conquest and glory, but the Andromedan intervention and the Alliance's growing strength turned the war against them. For the first time, the cynocephaly faced heavy losses, even losing entire legions during the Siege of Bellatrix, a defeat that mirrored their earlier defeat at the hands of the felines in Lyra. The Draconians, long known for their ruthless ambition, were no longer the unbeatable force they had once been. With the Alliance gaining momentum, the cynocephaly began to rethink their alignment. Many within their ranks questioned whether it was worth continuing a war that now seemed unwinnable. The devastating losses they faced in the Zeta Reticuli and Bellatrix campaigns only increased their disillusionment, leading to growing fractures within their military leadership. As the war raged on, the cynocephaly realized that their loyalty to the Draco-Orion Empire might lead to their eventual downfall. The defeat in key battles and the shifting alliances within their ranks left the Draco-Orion Empire vulnerable. With the Galactic Alliance, Andromedans, and other powerful civilizations now fully mobilized, the Draconians faced an enemy that was stronger and more coordinated than ever before. The intervention of intergalactic and higher dimensional forces proved to be the decisive factor that pushed the Draconians to the brink of defeat. They had once dominated the galaxy through fear, brutality, and overwhelming force, but now their empire was crumbling. As the war continued to turn against the Draco-Orion Empire, their leadership grew increasingly desperate. Their deep-seated hatred for humans, compounded by humiliating defeats on the battlefield, drove them to make reckless and devastating military decisions. The Draconian leaders, blinded by vengeance and a refusal to accept their inevitable defeat, threw countless lives into futile battles. They launched massive, poorly planned offensives aimed solely at causing as much destruction as possible, regardless of strategic value. In their desperation, the Draconians even deployed experimental weapons, often unstable and with catastrophic side effects, hoping to reverse the tide of the war. These gambles resulted in massive casualties, not just among the Galactic Alliance forces, but also within their own ranks, as weapons backfired or spiraled out of control, annihilating entire fleets and colonies. This tunnel vision, focused on eradicating humans, led the Empire to forsake any sense of strategy as they sacrificed resources, military assets, and even critical infrastructure to keep their war effort alive. Civilian supply lines faltered, Draconian worlds fell into disarray, and morale plummeted across their empire. What once was a juggernaut military machine began to unravel from within. The cynocephaly, once the Empire's fiercest allies, had grown increasingly disillusioned with the direction of the war. The wolf-like warriors had joined the Draconians with promises of conquest and territory. Yet as they watched the Draconian leadership pursue reckless vengeance over strategic victories, they began to realize their partnership was becoming a liability. The cynocephaly's leadership had always valued strength and military honor, but the Draconians' increasing obsession with human extermination, rather than securing meaningful gains, conflicted with their warrior ethos. Seeing legions of their own warriors wasted in pointless, suicidal offensives led them to reconsider their alliance. Furthermore, the internal chaos within the Draco-Orion Empire, combined with the loss of valuable territories, caused deep fractures in their relations. After witnessing devastating losses in battles such as Bellatrix and Zeta Reticuli, the Cynocephaly leadership decided they could no longer align with the self-destructive ambitions of the Draconian rulers. Unwilling to sacrifice their species for an empire spiraling into oblivion, they made the decisive choice to withdraw from the conflict. Their departure dealt a crippling blow to the Draco-Orion Empire, which had relied on the Cynocephaly's brutal efficiency in battle. Without their formidable presence, the Empire's remaining military force became significantly weakened, leaving them vulnerable to the advancing Galactic Alliance. Amid the crumbling Draco-Orion Empire, a long-brewing revolution came to the forefront: the Grey Rebellion. The Zeta Greys, created as expendable soldiers, had long been used as mere cannon fodder in the war. However, a growing faction among the Greys, led by a figure named Ektar, had begun to awaken to their plight. Seeing how their species had been treated as disposable assets, Ektar and his followers sought to liberate themselves from Draconian control. The rebellion started subtly with small acts of sabotage, cutting supply lines, disrupting communications, and feeding false intelligence to Draconian commanders. As the Empire weakened, the rebellion grew more overt, with Greys defecting in droves, causing chaos within Draconian ranks. What began as isolated acts of defiance soon grew into a full-scale revolt. The Greys, using their knowledge of the Empire's military and infrastructure, systematically dismantled key Draconian strongholds from the inside. The Draconians, already stretched thin by the war and losing control over their territory, struggled to suppress the uprising. The rebellion was not just a military coup, but a psychological shift, as the once subservient Greys asserted their autonomy. The Galactic Alliance, recognizing the potential in the Greys' rebellion, reached out to Ektar and his forces, offering them refuge and a chance to join their cause. In exchange for their help in undermining the Empire, the Greys were granted autonomy and recognition. This rebellion further destabilized the Empire's power structure, leaving them vulnerable to collapse from within. The Draco-Orion Empire's population, long conditioned to follow their rulers without question, could no longer ignore the devastation wrought by their leaders' obsession with destroying the humans. As entire fleets were annihilated and worlds fell into chaos, the civilian population began to rise in revolt. Draconian citizens, military families, and even low-ranking soldiers grew increasingly disillusioned with the Empire's direction. On numerous worlds, civilians rose up against the planetary governors, whose blind loyalty to the Draconian leadership had led to economic collapse and social unrest. Massive protests erupted in key cities, leading to violent clashes between civilians and loyalist forces. This internal strife spread like wildfire, with entire colonies declaring independence from the Draco-Orion Empire. Military commanders, witnessing the futility of their rulers' actions, began refusing orders to participate in suicidal offensives. Some even defected to the Galactic Alliance, bringing valuable intelligence and military assets with them. Others organized their own uprisings, overthrowing Draconian loyalists and aligning with the rebel factions. The loss of the Cynocephaly, the Grey Rebellion, and the civilian uprisings shattered the Empire's control over its territories, marking the beginning of its end. As the Draco-Orion Empire continued to spiral into chaos, the Special Security Service, SSS, an elite force of female warriors, saw their moment. The SSS had long been relegated to the fringes of Draconian society, despite their unmatched combat abilities and strategic brilliance. While they were often deployed on high-risk missions and served as the backbone of several military victories, they were rarely, if ever, granted real leadership roles. In traditional Draconian hierarchy, female Draconians were allowed to serve as governors, administrative coordinators, or ceremonial figures, but never as generals, warlords, or members of the High Council. Military command and imperial policy were domains fiercely guarded by the patriarchal elite. This exclusion was not born of capability, but of cultural dogma, an ancient belief that leadership was tied to bloodline dominance in male lineage. Over time, this systemic suppression planted deep resentment within the ranks of the SSS. They knew they were not just equal to their male counterparts, they were superior. Their talents were wasted, their visions ignored, and in the crucible of war, that quiet discontent grew into fire. The The reckless actions of the male-dominated leadership led the SSS to lose faith in the Empire's ability to survive. Frustration had been growing within the ranks of the SSS for years, as they watched the male rulers squander their military resources in futile attempts to exterminate humanity. The SSS had urged caution and strategic withdrawal, but their advice had fallen on deaf ears. As the rebellion and revolt spread, the SSS saw an opportunity to reshape the future of the Empire. In a bold and calculated move, the SSS orchestrated a coup against the Draconian male rulers. Utilizing their elite training and strategic planning, they swiftly eliminated the Empire's male leadership. Key figures were assassinated or imprisoned, and loyalist strongholds were overtaken. The SSS, now in control, dismantled the male-dominated hierarchy and seized power. Their first act was to halt the reckless military campaigns that had decimated the Empire's forces. They reached out to the Galactic Alliance, negotiating a ceasefire in a bid to salvage what remained of the Draco-Orion civilization. The coup marked not only the fall of the male-ruling regime, but also a fundamental shift in Draconian society. Under the SSS's leadership, the Empire abandoned its aggressive expansionism and sought peace. The Galactic Alliance, though wary, agreed to negotiations, bringing an end to the war and ensuring that the Draco-Orion Empire's reign of terror was finally over. With the coup of the Special Security Service, SSS, successfully toppling the male-dominated leadership of the Draco-Orion Empire, the final remnants of the ruling regime were captured. The Galactic Alliance, now the dominant force in the galaxy, chose a path of rehabilitation rather than outright destruction for those who had supported the brutal Draconian regime. The war, which had raged for 10 million years, began 20 million years ago with the Draconian attack on the Pleiades. After nearly 10 million years of bloodshed and destruction, the collapse of the Draconian male ruling classes signaled the end of the war. The Draconian male rulers and their key supporters were sent to rehabilitation camps, while others were banished or fled to distant corners of the galaxy. In the aftermath of the war, the Galactic Federation was formed, uniting the diverse civilizations of the galaxy under a common vision of peace, cooperation, and unity. This marked the beginning of an era of recovery and rebuilding after 10 million years of warfare, which had caused untold devastation across the galaxy. The Federation fostered a new sense of hope and harmony, bringing together former enemies who were once locked in conflict. Pleiadians, Lyrans, Arcturians, and reformed Draconians took the lead in rebuilding the galaxy and restoring the cosmic energy grids shattered by millennia of war. The true toll of the Great Galactic War was staggering. 8 trillion beings died in the physical realm, and billions more perished in the astral and dimensional planes. The war affected over 236 stars in 26 constellations, leaving 25,000 to 50,000 planets uninhabitable. The use of weapons like the atomic bombs by the Draco-Orion Empire devastated entire star systems, causing long-lasting destruction. This war had impacted countless civilian populations across the galaxy, displacing trillions. Entire ecosystems were obliterated, and the surviving populations found themselves scattered across the stars, often living in refugee fleets or on makeshift worlds. The Galactic Federation, with the help of Pleiadian healers and Arcturian spiritual leaders, spearheaded the effort to restore these war-torn regions. With the Galactic Federation firmly established, the war-torn galaxy began healing through cooperative cultural exchanges. Civilizations that had once been enemies now engaged in trade, technological cooperation, and cultural enrichment. The Andromedans introduced advanced energy-based spiritual technologies, while the Pleiadians shared their healing arts to restore both physical and spiritual balance across the galaxy. This cultural exchange was vital in bridging the deep divides caused by the war, fostering unity and giving rise to a shared understanding between species that had once been at war. New trade routes were established, connecting the various star systems and allowing the galaxy to flourish under the principles of peace and mutual respect. In a surprising turn of events, many former Draconian warriors became some of the galaxy's greatest healers. Once feared for their brutal tactics, these Draconians embraced the opportunity to redeem themselves, using their knowledge of war to help mend what had been broken. Their transformation symbolized the galaxy's capacity for change and growth after the long years of conflict. While many Draconians chose the path of rehabilitation, a small, fanatical faction of the Draco-Orion Empire refused to surrender. Fleeing to distant worlds like Earth, they harbored hopes of one day regaining their former power. These exiles subtly influenced political and societal developments on Earth, hoping to one day rebuild their empire. Though peace was restored, the Galactic Federation remained vigilant, aware that the remnants of the Draco-Orion Empire could still pose a threat. For the first time in 10 million years, the galaxy could focus on peace and cooperation. But the Federation knew the importance of staying united and prepared for future challenges. After the Galactic Federation was established, the galaxy entered a new era of peace, healing, and spiritual growth. Under the guidance of the Federation, civilizations across the galaxy embraced the principles of light and love. The scars of war were deep, but the collective desire to move forward was even stronger. The Federation's mission extended beyond physical reconstruction. It also sought to restore the spiritual balance that had been disrupted by the war. In doing so, the galaxy entered a period of unprecedented spiritual awakening. Species that had once been embroiled in war now focused their efforts on higher forms of consciousness and the development of new cosmic technologies that harmonized with the universe's natural laws. One of the key achievements of the Galactic Federation was the creation of the Galactic Council of Light. This council consisted of representatives from various civilizations that had aligned with the light, including the Pleiadians, Arcturians, Andromedans, and even reformed Draconians. The Galactic Council of Light became the guiding force behind the galaxy's evolution, overseeing the transition from a war-torn civilization to one focused on unity, harmony, and cosmic enlightenment. They worked to ensure that the balance between the physical and spiritual realms was maintained, drawing upon the knowledge of higher dimensional beings to assist in the continued ascension of the galaxy. Although the majority of the galaxy had embraced peace, the remnants of the Draco-Orion Empire continued to plot in the shadows. These survivors, who had fled to Earth and other Earth-like planets, still harbored hopes of one day regaining their former power. On Earth, they sought to manipulate the course of human development, subtly influencing political and societal structures in an attempt to regain control. However, the Galactic Federation kept a watchful eye on these activities. While the Draconian remnants had been reduced to a shadow of their former selves, the Federation remained vigilant, ensuring that the principles of peace and unity prevailed across the galaxy. Despite their efforts, the Draconians were never able to regain the empire they had lost, as the light of the Federation continued to shine brightly. As the galaxy continued to evolve under the guidance of the Galactic Federation, a movement towards Source began to take shape. Source, the ultimate origin of all creation, represented the highest state of cosmic enlightenment and unity. Through the teachings of the Galactic Council of Light, many civilizations began to ascend towards Source, transcending the need for physical existence and returning to a state of pure energy and consciousness. This ascension marked the final step in the galaxy's journey, as more and more species embraced the path of spiritual evolution. The once divided galaxy was now united in a common goal: the return to Source and the pursuit of eternal harmony.